everyone, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Redefining Recruitment. This time we're talking AI specifically for candidates and how you can use it to land your next dream job. So let's get to it. We have Patrick Cahill, president of Twice as Nice Recruiting. Patrick, how are you?
I'm doing great.
And we also have Caralie Coleman, our VP of Search here at Twice as Nice Recruiting. Caralie, how are you?
Just living the dream over here.
You always seem to be living the dream.
That's because she already has her dream job. She doesn't need AI.
And she doesn't even need AI to have it. Look at that. Well, unless you've been under a rock, essentially, you've probably seen social media's videos showing you how you can use AI to land a job, to write resumes, to write cover letters, emails, or even answer some of your interview questions live during an interview. Now, AI is a fantastic tool and it can be helpful in a lot of ways, but it can also hinder your job search in a lot of ways too. So we want to show you candidates how you can use AI to your benefit to land your dream job and hopefully help your search instead of hinder your search. So we'll get into it, but first let's introduce ourselves. We are Twice as Nice Recruiting, and we do one thing, and that's permanent placement recruiting. We build every single search from scratch. We have a 9.9% placement fee, and we guarantee our placements for 18 months. We've worked with more than 1,800 clients to fill roles across the board, and today we're redefining recruitment. So Patrick, I think to start out, we should talk about just the basics of AI. Frame the AI landscape for us. Tell us what options there are out there. If I'm a novice to AI, what can you tell me?
Yeah, what I'm about to say, if you're a candidate that found us because of an IT role, you're going to make fun of me for what I'm about to say because I am not an expert in this space, but I have more experience than someone who hasn't played with tools like ChatGPT or Claude or Copilot, Bard. There are so many. They're free. Or they can be to use in some limited manner, and they're really easy to get started with. So you can just Google to sign up, and we use ChatGPT here. That's the tool I'm most familiar with. And if you end up finding yourself intrigued, but you don't have a job you're looking to apply for right now, but you want to play with it, you don't know what you could potentially do. Just start asking questions. Create fake logos for fake companies just to see what you can get it to do for you. The thing I share with all my friends and neighbors is it's really good at making coloring book pages for kids, and you can just ask what's your favorite hobby, favorite animal, and all of a sudden you've got an amazing coloring book page if you really find yourself not needing to use it to find your next dream job at this next moment. But an important note is that you have to trust but verify. A lot of these AI tools even have disclaimers at the bottom of them or all over them, but they mean it. It's not one of those disclaimers that you're like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. They just do that because they have to. No, it makes mistakes all the time, and it does so with such confidence that you'll believe it. So if you see a date, a number, a name, any specific item that's important, verify that. And so it's not the end-all be-all. It's just something that can really help you move faster, but you need to make sure it's not moving so fast that you're just fully depending on it being correct.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Again, it's a tool in your toolbox, something to help propel you forward, but it is not the end all be all. And we are not the end all be all for AI information. We just want to give a really high level overview of how you can use AI for your job search and with your interviewing to really kind of boost your chances of landing that dream job. So Caralie, our VP of Search again over at Twice as Nice, is more familiar with using this within the job searches and with candidates. So I'm curious, Caralie, what is your favorite way that a candidate could use AI?
Great question. I think one of my favorite things to do, and it's something I do with my friends often, since being in the recruiting space, friends will come to you when they're interviewing for jobs and they'll ask for help. It's a great way to practice for an interview. So you can feed a job description into AI and ask for potential questions that someone might ask you, like an employer, hey, what will an employer ask me during an interview for this job? And it will give you some practice questions to run through. And it can also help with some company research. So I think that interview prep is key, but I do have some warnings, and that's don't use it live during the interview. We've all seen those social media videos where people are bragging that they used an app that helped them answer questions, but You don't want ChatGPT or AI in general to answer questions for you. Companies want to hire you. They don't want to hire AI. And if you get a job based on using AI answers that were fed to you, or if you lie about skills or experience, it will very quickly be uncovered right when you start working. People will figure it out and you won't keep the job. So I wanted to dive into a quick demo just showing how you can feed a job description in and get some help. And so I'm just going to share my screen. And hopefully you can see my screen right now. So I'm using ChatGPT. That's what I use day in, day out. It's my preferred tool. And so I picked a random job online, this job, and I'll load it here, but ChatGPT will also be able to pull from the link. But I found a job from Chewy because I was thinking about pets, and marketing analytics manager was just one of the random jobs that I selected. And so if we were to look for some help, I'm going to let them know that I have an interview coming up for this role and just ask for some questions that I might be asked as a candidate. Ooh, can't type. Okay, so I'm just asking, what are some questions that the employer may ask me? And so it listed out, and you'll see it was able to pull the link that I put in, which is super cool. So I don't have to copy and paste the job description anymore. You can just put the link right in there. And so it pulled out the key responsibilities, and then given those responsibilities, it's mapping out some questions that may be asked of me. And this is a great way to think about these questions, think about how you would answer them, start thinking about direct examples that might be helpful to have on hand for your interview, dates, numbers, things that you've driven forward so that you have them at the ready. And so I guess gone are the days where you need a friend to practice your interviews with. You can just sit here and do it with ChatGPT. And what I really like here is that it's not only giving us the question, but it's also giving us the purpose, kind of maybe showing you what the end goal of the interviewer might be if they were to ask you a similar question. So I think this can be a very helpful way to prepare for the interview. And then taking it a step further, we all know that the strongest candidates are ones that show interest, come prepared, and ask meaningful questions during the interview. So you can also have ChatGPT help you to figure out, what should I be asking about? What should I be diving into deeper? So I'm going to ask it, if I wanted to ask 3 questions at the end of the interview, what would be some strong questions to ask of the interviewer? And we'll see what it suggests. And again, I'm putting very specific parameters around this because ChatGPT can give you so much information. So the more specific you are, the better. And if you don't like the questions that it gave you, or maybe it gave you all those interview questions and you like them, but you want more, you can ask it for more. Or you could say, hey, I want behavioral interview focused questions, or I want questions that are focused on the STAR method, so that you can dive into various areas for the interview prep. So looking at the questions that it asked for, things that we might want to ask at the end of the interview. It's asking about how the analytics team collaborates and key challenges and growth and development. So it's giving you some things to think about so that you're not just showing up and saying, oh, I don't have any questions, or, oh, what is PTO like? Right? You're coming in more prepared and asking questions that will leave the interviewer thinking, wow, this person was prepared and they're really interested in the opportunity.
I have questions about the questions.
Yes.
You might be able to ask, can you give me some hypothetical answers that would be good for these questions? Is that something you'd recommend? And 2 can you do that?
So you could definitely ask for guidance around answers, but that's where it can get dicey. If you're making up experience and it's not really how you would answer the question, that could be not a great thing, because again, you may be misrepresenting your experience and your background. But if you were asking it, hey, what's maybe the best way to answer this question? Give me some guidance, and maybe it will talk about being concise, giving hard examples, right? Like it might give you more of a structure. So you could ask for tips if I'm being asked behavioral questions during an interview. What are the maybe 5 most important things to keep in mind? And we'll see what it tells us. So here it's teaching you. And I think this is maybe the most powerful way that you could use it. Because I'm not saying give me an answer because I want to misrepresent myself. I'm saying help me practice, help me answer in a stronger way. So it's saying use the STAR method, be specific and detailed, showcase your skills and strength. So it's kind of coaching you and helping you better prepare without just spoon feeding you false things to say. Because that's not going to help you keep a job if you get that job doing that.
And I feel like there's an element where I imagine some candidates are, like what a bunch of nerds in that look like, what does it matter if I'm using ChatGPT to create an answer that convinces the employer I'm a good fit, or I come up with myself. If I get the job, I get the job. And maybe a little background on that. The purpose of that suggestion, if I try to be like ChatGPT, is as recruiters, we see so often when people are looking for a job unexpectedly because they were let go. And it is a disadvantage to be looking for a job without a current job. And so you might be really excited about an opportunity. And so you push it a little, thinking like, I'll fake it until I make it. But not all employers are forgiving. Not all employers will be like, oh, they just need a little bit more time, because if they feel like they've uncovered that you misrepresented a level of expertise or experience or knowledge in an area, they may cut you sooner than later, and you could find yourself in a really tough spot. And so could it work out for some? Absolutely. But I think we just see the downstream negative domino effect of maybe misrepresenting something, getting let go very quickly, and then you find yourself in a real hard situation and maybe take a job that's less than ideal because you need a job right now. That only makes it harder for you to get to the next job you're excited about, and it can really unravel. And that's why we just keep emphasizing that. So, in case it's just helpful to understand why we're being sticklers on the proper representation of what your expertise and knowledge is. I really don't think it's a problem to ask ChatGPT, what would you say here? I think it's just a red flag to yourself if you're like, I need it to tell me because I don't know the answer to that question. I often am impressed with ChatGPT's ability to frame something I know about in a more concise manner. And so it can be helpful, but you just want to, if you find yourself, oh shoot, can you tell me what that means? Or what should I answer about my experience of finding, data or from this set? That's where you might be thinking, oh, this might not be the job for me.
Yeah, might not be the right opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. So, okay, we don't want it to answer questions for us. We want it to kind of guide our answers and to guide where we want to go with this interview, and get prepared for it. But I'm sure there are plenty of other ways that candidates can use AI to get ready for these interviews. What are some other areas and options that you think candidates can use, Caralie?
Yeah, I think some interesting areas. So say you find a job online that you're interested in and you want to see if it seems as though you're a good fit for it based on your resume. You can add the link to the job description or copy and paste that job description into AI and then upload your resume and just say, hey, based on my resume, am I a good fit for this role? And AI may call out some areas that maybe you've forgotten to highlight the right experience. And just based on the way your resume is currently written, people might not think you're a fit, but you are. And so it can help to show you ways that you want to tweak your job or your resume. Another way kind of on that tweaking of the resume front is, you can ask it, hey, based on this job description, what are some key things that people might be looking for? What should I potentially add to my resume or call out on my resume? This goes back to something Patrick said in the beginning, which is you have to verify. AI will often make things up. And so you want to be careful if you're uploading your resume that you're rereading it and making sure it didn't add something in. Because if you're maybe looking for an accounting manager role, it might just sneak in there that you're a CPA, even though you are not. And that would be not good. So it does really like to come up with experience and software and certifications. And so you just want to be careful and take a look. The But just like with the interview prep, where, hey, you might not need to call on friends to prep for interviews anymore because you have a handy tool that can help you, it can also review your resume. So maybe you want it to look for typos or grammatical issues, or maybe you want to see if your bullets are written as strongly as possible. You can ask it to help strengthen your resume. Maybe write this in a more compelling way, or, hey, this bullet's really wordy. What would you do to make it more concise? So it definitely allows you to strengthen things on your own without having to call on a lot of friends for that help.
Patrick, I'm curious how important it is to kind of have the perfect resume when you're applying for a job, whether that is tweaking it based on kind of the job description and your experience, but not making anything up, and also just making sure that there aren't grammatical errors, that things are spelled out correctly, the layout looks nice. How important is all of that?
I believe a perfect resume is pretty critical on a few layers. From working with over 1,800 employers, I remember when I first got into this industry, I was really surprised by how literal people wanted to be on, does this resume say they do what I need them to do and wanted them to say they had done? And I remember applying to jobs before I was in recruiting where I was like, oh, they'll see the connection there and they'll be so excited about that cross-industry capability. No, there's a lot of people in human resources are risk adverse. And they don't want a risky candidate for a number of reasons often. And so you want that resume to be perfect in that it actually speaks to why you see yourself as relevant. And I think ChatGPT or any AI tool can really help reorganize your resume, emphasize aspects of your experience that might not have been relevant for the last job you applied to, but are relevant for this job. So you have a tool that can help you identify that to make your resume perfect on that level. And then I am a typo manufacturing machine. If I touch a document, you'll know because there'll be a mistake in it. That's just how I contribute to this organization. And so what I really like about AI tools is it allows you to work these cycles so much faster without having to pull in friends, like Caralie said, because not only can you be adjusting your resume to reflect a specific role, if I were to do that, I'm going to introduce so many mistakes. It can then help me make sure I'm not introducing those mistakes by making sure that it's a typo-free document after it addresses the major points. But then I didn't introduce some weird grammatical mistake or a punctuation mistake that will undercut me when someone actually then reviews for that detail, because that risk-adverse reviewer is trying to find any signs that I'm a sloppy person. And I think I'm a great contributor to organizations, but I'm not a detail-oriented person. And so that, that resume can really look bad if I touch it, make those quick on-the-fly changes without having it reviewed. So yes, perfect on a couple levels is important. And I think AI addresses both of those really well.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing both of you say is, again, it's not this end all be all. It can help you kind of polish things off, or it can kind of help you get things started, but it's not the end all be all. So it's a great tool to have in your toolbox, but again, it's just a starting point or kind of an ending point.
I think you summed it up with it as a tool in your toolbox. Your toolbox needs other tools, and they all need to be operated by you. And that's how AI should be, I think, introduced. We created a volunteer committee here at Twice as Nice that was cross-functional, try to figure out how to utilize AI when ChatGPT was first made kind of publicly accessible. And it went in a really interesting direction because we had such grand plans for how we were going to incorporate it. And what we realized very quickly was you can get amazing return on investment of time if you just use it to get you a step faster and further from where you are right now. But that declining return on investment to the point where it becomes negative when you want it to actually get it to where it can get across the finish line without your intervention. So it is a tool. As long as you recognize it as a tool, understand its faults and weaknesses, it can be really an amazing tool. But if you ignore those faults and weaknesses and try to lean on it too heavily, it also could be your downfall.
Absolutely. Very well said. So we hope you got something out of this episode of Redefining Recruitment. You're able to learn a little bit more about this tool that we call AI, and hopefully you can use it to land your next dream job. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of Redefining Recruitment.